Where your control ends, God's provision begins, not as a slogan for easy seasons, but at the exact point where your strength can no longer pretend it is enough. We have all known that ache, one hand holding a promise, the other holding a reality that seems determined to contradict it. When the account is low, the door has closed, the family is waiting for strength, and the answer you prayed for still refuses to appear. The question does not arrive politely. It moves through the soul with a sharp edge. Did God say not yet, or did life already say never? Across a long enough delay, those two phrases can sound dangerously similar because both arrive without celebration, both leave you exposed, and both test the part of you that wanted certainty before obedience. Silence can cover a divine schedule or a completed season, which means the mature question is not merely how long must I wait. Deeper than duration, the real issue is discernment, because a delay requires endurance, while a denial requires release. Pressure turns discernment into hard work, because real life does not pause while you are trying to hear God. Rent remains due, groceries still cost money, children continue needing calm, parents may still require help, work keeps asking for focus, and the body gets tired of carrying invisible questions. Under that kind of weight, even a person with sincere faith can start reading every closed door as a verdict. Beneath the brave face, shame often enters before anyone notices. It does not usually announce itself with dramatic language. Instead, it whispers through reasonable sentences that sound almost mature. Maybe I should stop expecting anything. Perhaps this is my fault. Maybe God has moved on, and possibly everyone else was chosen while I was only tolerated. The event hurt, but the interpretation became heavier than the event itself. Nothing cheap can help a soul standing there. A soft slogan cannot survive the pressure of an unpaid invoice, a failed business, a job application that went nowhere, or a family table where everyone feels the tension even if no one names it. Comfort must become clarity, and clarity must be strong enough to stand inside reality without pretending the pain is smaller than it is. Scripture refuses to treat silence as absence. Heaven can be quiet without being empty, just as soil can look still while roots are working under the surface. Providence often moves beneath the measurable part of the story, in places no spreadsheet, comment, bank statement, or conversation can yet prove. God does not need visible noise to remain faithfully active. Habakkuk understood that tension because he did not begin with polished confidence. He brought complaint before God, asked how long injustice would continue, and refused the fake spirituality that pretends unanswered questions are not painful. The answer he received was not a clean explanation of every detail. It was a revelation about time. For the vision is yet for an appointed time. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not delay. Notice the sharp paradox inside that sentence. The vision tarries, yet it will not delay, which means apparent slowness is not the same thing as actual lateness. From where you stand, the door may look late, the provision may look late, and the answer may feel late. And still, from God's side of the design, the appointed time can remain intact. That is not religious wordplay, it is the difference between panic and trust. Real spiritual maturity begins when you stop judging God's faithfulness only by speed. Human control measures time by discomfort, while divine guidance measures time by purpose. Control says, if this were real, it would already be visible. Guidance says, if this is real, it may need to be protected until the appointed time can carry it without crushing you. Shame hates that kind of patience because shame wants immediate proof that you are still valuable. A closed door becomes humiliating, not because the wood and hinges have spiritual authority, but because your identity got tied to what opened. When the opportunity disappears, shame translates the moment into a sentence about you. That translation is often false, yet it can still drain peace, wisdom, money, and courage. Consider the ordinary brutality of delayed provision. A contract falls through, a business slows down, an interview ends politely and never returns, or a debt grows while the house tries to stay normal. The anxious mind starts adding commentary. Maybe God is silent because he is finished. Maybe obedience was useless, perhaps the years were wasted. Such thoughts can sound intelligent, but fear often learns sophisticated vocabulary when it wants to avoid surrender. Providence has a colder, cleaner logic than panic. God can close a door without closing your future, delay access without rejecting your calling, and reduce your options without reducing your worth. Sometimes he blocks what would flatter you but damage your house. At other times, he delays what is good because the version of you trying to enter would turn provision into pressure. That is the sentence control hates most, because it means the closed door may be serving you more faithfully than the open one you demanded. Control despises that sentence because control wants immediate access. It wants the open door now, the answer now, the income now, the visible confirmation now, and the relief now. Yet, premature access can become a trap if character is unprepared, structure is weak, motives are mixed, or the family system is already cracking under pressure. God's restraint may feel like withholding, but some forms of withholding are protection with authority. Discernment begins when the question changes from why has nothing happened to what is God protecting, forming, correcting, or providing while movement remains hidden. That shift does not remove pain, yet it keeps pain from becoming your interpreter. A mature believer does not call every obstacle demonic, every delay rejection, or every closed door failure. Wisdom learns to ask whether the provider is supplying direction before he supplies increase. Courage is required because not everything you are waiting for is a genuine word from God. Some desires are sincere but not assigned, and certain plans carry more ego, fear, image repair, or social comparison than calling. A true word has a different weight. It does not survive only because you keep emotionally inflating it. Return to it after months of silence, and something underneath the fatigue still breathes. Years ago, I carried a direction that seemed too clear to ignore. Prayer, counsel, timing, and circumstance appeared to converge, so I treated it not as a passing preference, but as something that deserved obedience. Then the movement stopped. No dramatic rejection arrived, yet no breakthrough came either, and the quiet began doing what long quiet always does. It tried to rewrite my memory of what I had heard. During that season, theology sounded clean while daily life felt rough. Responsibilities kept arriving, work still required excellence, and people around me still needed steadiness, while my private life filled with questions I did not want to admit. Was obedience becoming stubbornness? Had faith turned into fantasy? Could a person be waiting on God while secretly hiding from the pain of release? Looking back, the central battlefield was interpretation. The silence itself said very little, but anxiety translated it aggressively. A delay became disfavor, a closed door became a verdict on my value, and a reduced season became proof that my future had shrunk. Those conclusions felt realistic in the moment. Later, I recognized them as fear trying to sound wise. Movement eventually came, although not in the form I had pictured. The direction remained, but the shape changed, and that difference humbled me. God preserved the essence of what he had spoken while stripping away the version my control had built around it. Mercy sometimes looks like the death of your preferred scenario, so the real assignment can survive. Someone listening may need that exact distinction. The word can be real while your interpretation of the word is too small, yet the calling can remain alive while your imagined doorway becomes outdated. Provision may be coming through a route your ego would never have selected, and if your eyes stay fixed on one form only, you may miss the answer when it arrives through humility. Aligned waiting is not passivity. Habakkuk was told to write the vision plainly, so the one who reads it may run, not drift, freeze, perform, or collapse. Waiting with God means preserving clarity, refusing panic, and taking the next obedient step without trying to seize the entire timeline. That posture requires strength, but it is not the same thing as striving. Striving is the labor of an orphan. It works because it is terrified of being abandoned, pushes because stillness feels unsafe, and confuses exhaustion with faithfulness. Before long, the soul becomes a factory. The home becomes a pressure room, and prayer becomes one more task on a schedule already breaking. God never asked you to finance His will with panic. Business language can expose the spiritual problem clearly. Not every opportunity should be accepted, because growth without structure can bankrupt a company faster than scarcity. Cash flow may look impressive while the foundation is rotten, and a leader who cannot say no becomes owned by every urgent demand. Spiritually, an open door is not automatically provision. Sometimes it is a test of appetite. Provision is broader than sudden money. God may provide income, but He may also provide restraint, a warning, a smaller beginning, a closed partnership, an honest conversation, or the wisdom to cut an expense before it becomes a chain. The provider is not limited to one delivery method. A person obsessed with one form of supply may overlook the fact that God is already sustaining the house through order. Households feel pressure before they can explain it. When money gets tight, the grocery list becomes emotional, the unpaid bill becomes personal, and every ordinary conversation carries static. A parent can start measuring spiritual worth by visible provision, while a spouse may interpret fatigue as distance, and children may absorb the atmosphere without understanding its cause. At that point, the family is no longer dealing only with finances, it is dealing with identity under pressure. Christ the provider speaks directly into that room. God is not embarrassed by your reduced season, confused by your numbers, or distant from the table where the bills are spread out. An empty account does not make you invisible to heaven. A lost contract does not cancel your calling. Needing help does not make you less spiritual. Reduction can become a brutal teacher, though it should never be romanticized. It exposes waste, reveals false alliances, and separates genuine support from people who only admired your momentum. Pain is still pain, and financial pressure can wound deeply, but a narrow season can reveal which parts of life were built on providence and which parts were surviving on image. Hard truth, handled rightly, becomes mercy. Nuance matters here because faith must not become cruelty. Hardship is not automatically a lesson, and no one carrying heavy pressure needs a lecture dressed as encouragement. Families need relief, wisdom, and presence. Still, difficulty does not have the authority to define God's posture toward you. Heavy is not the same as abandoned. Central to this struggle is the conflict between human control and divine guidance. Control demands certainty before surrender, while guidance invites surrender before full visibility. Panic tries to break the door because waiting feels weak. Guidance asks whether the door is closed because mercy is guarding what impatience would destroy. One produces noise, the other produces order. Because control feels productive, many believers defend it as responsibility. They call it realism, discipline, leadership, or wisdom. But beneath the respectable vocabulary, the soul may be saying something more dangerous. If I stop gripping everything, my life will fall apart. That belief is not strategy. It is functional unbelief wearing business clothes. Wise waiting needs structure because emotion alone cannot be trusted under pressure. Once a week, write the direction as specifically as possible, without hiding inside vague religious language. Name the actual matter before God, the work, the provision, the family need, the closed door, the restart, the debt, the calling, the decision, or the repair that keeps returning to your prayers. Let the words sit there for a moment, not as performance, but as a sober record of what you are carrying. Beside that written direction, place 2 words: appointed time. Those words are not a deadline, demand, threat, or spiritual trick. They are a disciplined return of the calendar to God's hands. You are teaching your nervous system that the provider is not improvising because your circumstances became complicated. Afterward, choose one aligned action for the week. One action is enough when it is clean. Send the proposal, make the call, apologize where pride has delayed peace, reduce the expense, update the resume, learn the skill, ask for counsel, or rest before exhaustion starts giving orders. The point is not frantic movement. The point is positioned faithfulness, the kind that keeps moving without turning obedience into panic. Monthly, ask a harder question. Can I still describe what I am waiting for in concrete terms, or has the vision become foggy? Specific conviction that remains alive under pressure deserves attention, while a fantasy that requires constant emotional inflation should be questioned. The aim is not to protect your favorite outcome, because real goal is truth before God. Accountability can help, but choose the witness carefully. Too much exposure turns waiting into performance, while too much secrecy lets drift hide in the dark. Find one mature person who can hear the honest version without feeding panic or pride. Ask for help guarding clarity, not managing appearances. Cheerleaders are common, witnesses are rare, never has a final sound in the soul. It slowly releases you, even if grief remains. Not yet feels different because beneath the ache, something continues to live. The door may remain closed, but the direction still carries weight. The season may be exhausting, yet release does not bring peace. Discernment listens for that difference. Hidden does not mean dead. A seed is not failing because no one can applaud the soil. Roots grow in darkness. Capacity forms away from public view, and God often prepares serious provision where the ego has no audience. The hidden process offends pride because pride wants proof. Faith learns to respect what cannot yet be displayed. Restarting after loss requires a sharper courage than most people understand. Shame says the new beginning proves the old effort was wasted. Wisdom says the restart may be the first honest structure you have built in years. Pride wants to recover the image quickly. God may be rebuilding the substance slowly. Families need that perspective. Children do not need parents who pretend. They need truth without collapse, courage without theater, and faith that does not turn pressure into rage. A home can walk through reduced means and still carry dignity. What poisons a household is not difficulty alone, but secrecy, shame, blame, and panic. Rest becomes essential, not decorative. Stopping is not weakness. In a culture addicted to acceleration, it becomes skill. That holy break quiets a runaway need for control, especially when labor without trust begins to feel like a curse, because every hour becomes proof that everything depends on you. Sabbath is rebellion against orphan thinking, a refusal to keep working as though God resigned and left the whole business of provision to your nervous system. Exhaustion distorts discernment. A depleted body hears threat in every silence, treats every closed door as final, and turns every delay into catastrophe. God built limits into human life because weary people misread reality, which means sleep can be obedience, a slower pace can be wisdom, and saying no can become a form of faith. Concrete pressure deserves concrete prayer. If the account is empty, ask for wisdom without pretending the fear is small. When the invoice is overdue, pray without theater and plan without despair. Where the job search has gone cold, keep dignity without calling disappointment a lack of faith. Under family pressure, seek order before chasing a spectacular rescue. Because God often stabilizes before he multiplies. Another trap appears when people confuse access with blessing. A door opens and they assume God approved it. A person offers help and they ignore the hidden cost. An opportunity flatters the image, so they call it favor. Mature faith asks harder questions. Does this path require compromise? Will it strengthen the household or feed the ego? After excitement fades, does peace remain? Therefore, measure faithfulness by more than speed. Fast can still be foolish, increase can enlarge chaos, and a yes can become judgment if the heart is unprepared. Divine provision has fit, timing, order, and peace. The provider knows the difference between what you want quickly and what you can carry faithfully. Perhaps the line that needs to settle deepest is this: the distance between prayer and performance is not always a graveyard. Sometimes it is a greenhouse. A graveyard buries what is finished. A greenhouse protects what is still growing. Both can look quiet from the outside, but only one is carrying a future beneath the surface. Stay with that image for a breath, because the two can look almost identical until the appointed time reveals what was alive all along. Maybe the silence around you is not empty. Beneath the visible stillness, God may be forming roots strong enough to hold the weight of what you asked for. The slowness may be preserving your house, the closed door may be blocking counterfeit provision, and the smaller beginning may be protecting you from a larger collapse. What looks unimpressive may be extremely intelligent. Here is the practical path. Refuse shame's interpretation, name the pressure honestly, write the direction clearly, take one aligned action, rest before panic starts giving counsel, and let one mature witness help preserve clarity. What God has clearly closed can be released. What He has truly spoken can be held. The clock finally must be left where it belongs. Even when loneliness says otherwise, you are not surviving alone. God provides inside reality, not outside it. He meets people in apartments, hospital rooms, offices, kitchens, buses, interviews, spreadsheets, courtrooms, and sleepless nights. Supply may arrive as money, direction, restraint, wisdom, endurance, favor, closure, or a path you did not know existed. The form belongs to Him, alignment belongs to you. Let this settle without noise. Closed doors are not automatically rejection, delay is not automatically denial, and reduction is not proof that your value decreased. Starting again does not erase what obedience built in you, because God does not waste the years shame tries to bury. Modern pressure has a way of turning the soul into a negotiation table. You start bargaining with God, with yourself, and with the future, as though enough effort could purchase certainty. Many sincere people lose peace right there. They are not rebellious. They are exhausted negotiators trying to make Providence sign a contract on human terms, and the contract is always written in fear. Empty accounts reveal theology more brutally than comfortable seasons do. When the numbers do not work, you discover whether trust was rooted in God or quietly borrowed from financial margin. This is not an accusation, it is an invitation to see clearly. The provider does not become real only after abundance arrives. His lordship must be learned while the math still feels threatening. Delay also exposes the difference between desire and assignment. Desire wants the outcome because of what it will repair in your image, status, or sense of safety. Assignment carries weight even when applause disappears. A desire can be negotiated away when conditions become uncomfortable, but a God-given direction continues pressing on the conscience with sober authority. Guidance rarely flatters the ego. It may tell you to simplify instead of expand, apologize instead of defend, downsize instead of pretend, wait instead of announce, or rest instead of proving your value through another exhausted week. These instructions can feel small compared with the dramatic breakthrough you wanted, yet obedience often begins in those unglamorous places. Authority in the kingdom is not noise. A frantic person may look productive from the outside while slowly losing inner command. The stronger soul is not the one that never feels pressure. It is the one that refuses to let pressure become Lord. When God is the provider, urgency loses its throne and obedience becomes sharper than panic. pain should be allowed to speak, but not to govern. Grief can tell you where something mattered, while fear tries to tell you what everything means. There is a difference. Let grief be honest, without giving it the authority to define your future. Allow disappointment to breathe without letting it write theology for you. Timing becomes clearer when you stop treating every delay as wasted time. The waiting may be building business judgment, relational humility, spiritual endurance, financial sobriety, or the ability to receive without turning the gift into an idol. None of that feels spectacular while it is happening. Yet a person who receives provision without capacity can lose it faster than a person who never received it at all. That is why God sometimes builds the container before he releases the weight. Meanwhile, the closed door may be doing more work than the open one would have done. It may be keeping you from a partnership that would drain your peace, a platform that would feed your vanity, or an opportunity that would require a version of you God is trying to heal. Closed does not always mean cursed. Sometimes closed means guarded. Prayer, then, must mature beyond emergency language. Of course, you can ask for relief. Scripture gives room for that honesty. Still, mature prayer also asks for clean motives, clear eyes, restrained hands, and a heart that can recognize provision even when it does not arrive in the preferred packaging. Such prayer is less theatrical, but far more powerful, because it stops treating God as an emergency contact and begins trusting him as Lord. Financial pressure needs spiritual intelligence, not denial. Create the plan, examine the numbers, cut what must be cut, ask for counsel, and stop calling disorganization faith. God can bless structure. He can multiply what is ordered. But panic resists structure because structure forces truth into the open. Spiritual adulthood does not sound glamorous. It sounds like one honest spreadsheet, one difficult conversation, one restrained purchase, one forgiven offense, one focused application, one night of actual sleep, one morning prayer without performance. In the kingdom, small obedient acts can become the scaffolding for large provision. God often builds with materials pride would overlook. Worldly ambition says the goal is to look successful as quickly as possible. Divine guidance says the goal is to become trustworthy before increase arrives. Those two paths may appear similar for a season, but they produce different people. One becomes impressive and brittle, the other becomes quiet, durable, and difficult to destroy. Ultimately, when you do not know whether the answer is not yet or never, do not let panic make the decision. Bring the matter back to God with ruthless honesty. Examine the fruit. Listen to wise counsel. Take the next aligned step and refuse to let shame narrate the silence. The provider is not threatened by your questions. He is far more committed to truth than your fear is committed to control. Leadership under pressure begins with the ability to separate signal from noise. The signal may be quiet, one clear instruction, one necessary correction, one door that should not be forced, one small provision that keeps the next day possible. Noise, by contrast, arrives loudly. It demands immediate proof, exaggerated action, and public validation. A soul led by God learns to obey the signal without worshipping the noise. Mercy also looks like interruption. A plan fails before it can become a cage. A relationship ends before it becomes a lifetime of compromise, or a financial door shuts before it teaches you to build on debt and appearance. At first, interruption feels insulting. Later, if humility has room to speak, you may recognize that God was not merely blocking motion, he was rescuing direction. Work still matters, but work must return to its proper place. Labor is honorable when it flows from stewardship, love, service, and obedience. The same labor becomes bondage when it is fueled by terror. Trust does not make a person lazy, it makes effort clean. Without trust, even success can feel like slavery because the soul keeps asking what must be sacrificed next to keep the image alive. Whatever remains unfinished should not be handed to despair. Place the unfinished business, the unanswered prayer, the tense household, the narrowed budget, and the closed door before God without theatrical language. He can handle facts. Better than that, he can govern facts. The provider is not asking for denial. He is asking for surrender, sharp enough to tell the truth and still obey. Father, many people listening are carrying more than they can explain. Their bodies are tired, their homes feel pressured, and their hearts may be struggling to tell the difference between waiting and rejection. Meet them without cheap comfort. Enter the real room where the real fear lives. The room where bills are open, strength is thin, and silence has started to sound like a verdict. Speak there with enough mercy to heal and enough authority to correct what panic has distorted. Begin where their interpretations have grown cruel. Break the lie that silence means abandonment. Restore truth where shame has rewritten the story, and expose control where it has disguised itself as responsibility. If exhaustion has made every delay feel final, let rest return deeply enough for sight to become clear again. Teach them to move without striving and to stop without quitting. For households under strain, provide with wisdom rather than mere speed. Bring order where panic scattered the pieces, courage for the conversation that has been avoided, and restraint where haste would create damage. In the appointed time, open the door that is truly from you, and keep shut what would destroy peace, even if it looks attractive from the outside. Over every new beginning wrapped in embarrassment, speak dignity. For the parent trying to stay strong, release steadiness. Into the worker, the business owner, the student, the caregiver, and the exhausted believer, breathe endurance without hardness. Let provision arrive with order. Let guidance come with peace, and let rest become the holy break that stops the violence of control. If the answer is not yet, give strength to wait cleanly. When the answer is no, give grace to release without shame. Should the form be different from what they imagined, make their eyes humble enough to recognize your hand. While a door remains closed, keep their hearts from turning a circumstance into a verdict. You are the provider in the middle of real-life pressure. Far more than a slogan or mood, this is reality. Be Lord over the rent, the unpaid invoice, the empty account, the delayed answer, the family burden, the closed door, the restart, the shame, and the future that still feels unfinished. Not from a distance, but as the God who enters the room where human control has finally run out of oxygen. At last, we return the timeline to your hands. Into those hands, we place what opened. There as well, we place what closed. Along with it, we place the fear, the fatigue, the household, the waiting, and the whole unfinished story. Guide what must move, sustain what must endure, heal what shame distorted, and provide what human control could never manufacture. Amen.